Hello, my name is Phil Easter, historian and writer from Baltimore, Maryland, also known as the Amazing Memory Man. We are recording on Sunday, July 30th, 2023. This is YouTube story number 33 on my channel, which is Phil Easter, the Amazing Memory Man. Today is the birthday of Baltimore, Maryland. This town was founded in the year 1729, 294 years ago. So just 6 more years, Baltimore will be celebrating 300 years. So at some future time, I will do a YouTube story about some of the history of Baltimore. But today, we are just 2 days from the month of August, and I'm going to share with all of you many events in history and some of my own personal life for all 31 days of the month of August in years past. We start with August 1st. In 1936, that was the opening day ceremony of the Olympic Games in Berlin, Germany. The Olympic Games where the great American track star Jesse Owens became world famous when he won 4 gold medals at those Olympics. So this was the opening ceremony of those Olympics in 1936. Also, in 1971, there was a special rock concert at New York's Madison Square Garden, which was organized by George Harrison, formerly of the Beatles. The Beatles as a group had broken up just 1 year before in 1970, but George Harrison invited a number of other top musicians of the time, another former Beatle, Ringo Starr, and a very famous Bob Dylan, who wrote many beautiful songs of the 1960s, and other musicians to come to Madison Square Garden for a special concert on August 1st, 1971, to help raise money for people who were starving in the country of Bangladesh in Asia, formerly called East Pakistan. At that time, it was called Bangladesh. So the concert was called The Concert for Bangladesh in New York, August 1st, 1971. And a movie was made, they filmed that concert, and it was released as a movie the next year in 1972. And I saw it several times here in Baltimore. But also, on August 1st, 1976, I was in the great city of Montreal, Canada. It was the last day of the Olympic Games from July 17th to August 1st, where I saw many sports events, and the closing ceremony was on the night of August 1st. And even then, at age 23, I thought, I'd already studied about previous Olympic history, and I thought to myself at one point, it was 40 years ago today, August 1st, 1936, was that opening ceremony of the Berlin Olympics. And here I am at the closing ceremony of the Montreal Olympics, 40 years to that date. August 2nd. August 2nd is the birthday of my favorite actor of all time. The great actor from Ireland, Peter O'Toole, was born August 2nd, 1932. He starred in many movies. His most famous movie ever was the 1962 historical epic, Lawrence of Arabia. August 3rd, in 1936, that was the day that Jesse Owens at the Berlin Olympics won his first of 4 gold medals. He won the 100-meter dash that day. August 4th, also at those 1936 Olympic Games, the long jump competition. Jesse Owens and Lutz Long of Germany were the top 2 competitors. In a great gesture of sportsmanship, what occurred was Jesse Owens fouled on his first 2 jumps in the first round. If he fouled one more time, he would be disqualified. And even though he held the world record already from a track meet in the United States the year before, he would be disqualified if he couldn't jump properly, the final jump. And he was a little nervous. And Lutz Long suggested to him, why don't you draw a chalk line a few inches in front of the board? With your ability, you should be able to take off from there and still qualify. And that's what Jesse Owens did. And in the final round of 6 jumps each for Jesse Owens and Luz Long, Jesse Owens won the event, but Luz Long came in second for a silver medal. But a great gesture of sportsmanship by the young German. Not an easy thing to do, with Adolf Hitler and his top Nazi officers watching this at the Olympic Stadium. The young German befriended the American at those Olympics. August 5th, in 1936, Jesse Owens won his 3rd gold medal. 3 days in a row he won events, this time the 200-meter dash. But sadly, on August 5th, 1962, one of the most famous movie stars of all time, Marilyn Monroe, committed suicide that day in Los Angeles. She was only 36 years old. The death of Marilyn Monroe shocked many people in America and around the world. It seemed like she had everything, a beautiful, famous woman and very wealthy, but very few people knew that she was very sad inside. And she took her life on that day in 1962. August 6, in 1945, towards the end of World War II, that was the day the United States dropped the atomic bomb on Hiroshima, Japan. Close to 80,000 people were killed that day by the atomic bomb, August 6, 1945. But by August 14th, the war was effectively over, and on September 2nd, 1945, the Japanese officially surrendered. August 7th, in 2005, one of the best television reporters ever, Peter Jennings of ABC News, died at age 67. He covered many events. As a young reporter, he was working for ABC at the time of the Munich Olympics tragedy in 1972. In the 1980s, he was a correspondent based in London for ABC. By the mid-1980s, he then became the chief anchorman of ABC News television for many years. Peter Jennings died August 7th, 2005. August 8th, in 1981, here in Baltimore, the National Aquarium officially opened, and the mayor of Baltimore at the time, William Donald Schaefer, jumped into the pool wearing a 1920s style men's garments for swimming, even wearing it like a shirt and trunks both that they wore in the 1920s. It was kind of funny. It made national news that day on television, but he wanted to advertise the opening of the National Aquarium in Baltimore. Also, August 8th in 2008 was the opening ceremony of the Olympic Games in Beijing, China. The first time China hosted the Olympic Games, those Summer Games, Beijing in 2008, opening ceremony on August 8th. August 9th, in 1936, that was the day Jesse Owens won his 4th gold medal at those Berlin Olympics. As part of the USA relay, 4x100 meter relay team, the 4 young men working together won the gold medal, and for Jesse, that was his 4th gold medal of those historic Berlin Olympics. But also in 1974, 49 years ago this month, or excuse me, well, coming soon, August, as I just talked about August, 49 years ago, I was on Cape Cod, Massachusetts that summer, and I watched on TV that night President Richard Nixon announcing his resignation, the only American president to ever resign in American history. August 10th, in 1984, at the Los Angeles Olympics, a very controversial event occurred in the women's 3,000-meter race. One of the favorites to win that race was American Mary Decker. Just a year before, in 1983, she won 2 gold medals in distance running at the World Championships in Helsinki, Finland. And now, in her own country, at the Los Angeles Games, she was one of the favorites to win. But she was tripped up at one point by a young lady runner who was really from South Africa, but she was competing for Great Britain because at that time South African athletes were not allowed to compete in the Olympic Games because of the government's apartheid measures. That the International Olympic Committee did not allow anyone who had a South African citizenship to compete. But only months before, she was given British citizenship, and she made the British Olympic team. But she tripped up Mary Decker, and it was a terrible thing, and Mary fell to the track and was unable to complete the race. And that occurred August 10th, 1984. August 11th, also at those 1984 Olympic Games, Sebastian Coe of Great Britain won the Olympic gold medal in the 1500-meter run. He defended his title from Moscow 4 years before. He also won the 1500 meters. First man to ever win that event in 2 consecutive Olympics. August 12th, in 1982, the famous actor Henry Fonda died that day. The last movie he ever made was called On Golden Pond, a touching family-type movie where he co-starred with Katharine Hepburn, and also his daughter Jane Fonda was in that movie. Henry Fonda died August 12, 1982. And 2 years later, in 1984, that was the final day of the Los Angeles Olympic Games. And Carlos Lopes of Portugal won the marathon. He was 37 years old. I'm pretty sure that he's the oldest person to ever win the Olympic marathon. Carlos Lopes, age 37, from Portugal, victorious in Los Angeles on that day. August 13th, in 1926, Fidel Castro was born in Cuba. And by about 1959, he led the Cuban Revolution, and he became the leader of Cuba for many years. Fidel Castro, born August 13, 1926. But also on August 13th in 1961, that's when the East Germans began building the Berlin Wall, the famous wall that separated the two Germanys. August 14th, in 1948, that was the final day of the London Olympic Games. Those games were from July 29th to August 14th, and it was the first Olympics after World War II, 1948. So it's very important, those Olympic Games, because 1940 and 44 were both canceled because of World War II. The first Olympics in 12 years since the Berlin Games of 1936. August 15th, on that day in 1769, Napoleon Bonaparte was born on the island of Corsica. He became one of the most famous figures in world history when he became the Emperor of France. He defeated many countries, in many battles, became the most powerful man in Europe for about a 15-year period, from about 1800 to 1815, but he was finally defeated at the Great Battle of Waterloo by the English army led by the Duke of Wellington. He died in exile on the island of St. Helena in 1821. But again, his birthday was August 15th, 1769. August 16th, 2 very famous American men have died that day. I think you could say that both baseball great Babe Ruth and singer Elvis Presley are American institutions. I mean, their legacy and what they did was so significant in baseball and in music. Babe Ruth died August 16th, 1948, and Elvis Presley died August 16th, 1977. August 17th was the birthday of the great American frontiersman, Davy Crockett. He was born August 17th, 1786. He, in the 1800s, became a congressman for a while from the state of Tennessee, and he was killed at the famous battle at the Alamo in 1836. His birthday, August 17th, 1786. August 18th. This is the birthday of one of my favorite movie actresses ever. Madeleine Stowe was born August 18th, 1958, in California. She has appeared in many films over the years, including one of my two favorite movies ever, where she co-starred with Daniel Day-Lewis in The Last of the Mohicans, a wonderful romantic adventure story set during the French and Indian War in the year 1757. Madeline will turn 65 this year on August 18th. But also in 1979, on my wonderful 15-week trip to Great Britain and Ireland, that was the day I saw the rock band The Who in concert at London's Wembley Stadium, one of England's most famous rock bands. About 80,000 people were there. A very exciting concert to see The Who, August 18th, 1979. August 19th is the birthday of former President Bill Clinton. He was born that day in 1946. August 20th was the birthday of President Benjamin Harrison. He was born August 20th in 1833. August 21st is the day in 1959 that Hawaii became America's 50th state. As many of you know, it had been a territory for a long time, including the famous Pearl Harbor attack on December 7, 1941, which led America into World War II, but Hawaii became our 50th state officially, August 21st, 1959. August 22nd, in the year 1485, one of the great battles in medieval English history, the Battle of Bosworth, where King Richard III was killed by soldiers of Henry, who then became King Henry VII. The death of Richard III, immortalized in Shakespeare's play, Richard III. According to Shakespeare, he said, a horse, a kingdom for my horse." He could not find a horse to escape. He was on foot and was killed by some of the soldiers of Henry VII. But also August 22nd, in 1939, was the birthday of Carl Yastrzemski, who became one of the greatest players in baseball history during the 1960s and 70s. He played for the Boston Red Sox his whole career. And I remember how in 1967, at age 26, he became one of the few baseball players to ever win the Triple Crown. And in 1 year, to lead your league in home runs, runs batted in, and batting average. Carl Yastrzemski, born August 22nd, 1939. August 23rd, that was the day in 1305 that William Wallace, a hero of Scotland who fought against the English, unfortunately he was captured by the English and was executed in London on August 23rd, 1305. So in the late 13th, early 14th centuries, he was one of those who in Scotland who fought against the English, and the story of William Wallace is immortalized in the 1995 movie directed by Mel Gibson and starring Mel Gibson as William Wallace in the movie called Braveheart. August 24th, way back in 79 AD, that was the day in Italy that Mount Vesuvius erupted, killing thousands of people in the city of Pompeii. The terrible volcano, Mount Vesuvius, devastating the city of Pompeii on August 24th, 79 AD. But also in 1960, here in the state of Maryland, Cal Ripken was born, or Cal Ripken Jr., who became one of the greatest baseball players of the latter part of the 20th century, playing for the Baltimore Orioles between 1981 and 2001. At one point, he played 2,632 consecutive games over about 14 seasons. He has the record for most consecutive games ever played in baseball history. August 25th, in 1944, that was the day that Allied armies liberated Paris from the Germans. It was one of the most joyous celebrations of any city in world history. The French people were so appreciative of American, British, Canadian, and other Allied armies who freed their city from the Germans on that day in 1944. towards the end of World War II. August 26, in 1972, that was the opening day ceremony of the Munich Olympic Games. I watched that on TV here in Baltimore, and I was excited about going to Munich. Not long after my mom and I would arrive in Munich in early September, we saw the last several days of those Olympic Games. But on August 26th was the opening ceremony, and I watched it on TV. August 27th, in 1908, President Lyndon Johnson was born in the state of Texas. He became president, of course, due to the tragedy of President JFK being assassinated on November 22nd, 1963. And the next year he won his own term for president, but he chose not to run again in 1968. Among other things, Lyndon Johnson signed the famous Civil Rights Bill, into law on July 2nd, 1964. Lyndon Johnson, born August 27, 1908. August 28th, a remarkable day at the Athens Olympic Games in 2004 for the country of Argentina. No athlete or any team sport representing Argentina had won an Olympic gold medal in 52 years. Not since 1952 had Argentina won a gold medal in any sport in the Olympic Games. On that day, Argentina won 2 gold medals in 2 major team sports, basketball and soccer. Amazing, on the same day, August 28, 2004. It's not so surprising they won the soccer gold medal. They've won the World Cup several times already at that point in soccer, but to win basketball was amazing because the United States men's team usually wins basketball. So how about that? Argentina does not win a single gold medal in 52 years, and on one day of the Athens Olympics, they win 2, both soccer and basketball. August 29th. In 1915, the great actress Ingrid Bergman was born. She lived exactly 67 years to the very day, dying on her birthday, her 67th birthday in 1982. One of the famous people who actually died on her birthday. August 30th, that was the birthday of the great baseball player Ted Williams, born in San Diego, California, August 30th, 1918. In 1939, he joined the Boston Red Sox and had a fabulous career with a .344 lifetime batting average, 521 home runs. In 1941, he was the last man to hit over 400 for one season. He had a .406 batting average. He also won the Triple Crown twice. His career ended in 1960, but he actually missed about 4.5 years because he served in the military during both World War II for 3 years and the Korean War for about 1.5 years. And he still sets amazing records. If he had not missed those 4.5 seasons, he probably would have been close to 700 home runs. And still, he had 521 in about 16 or 17 seasons played over that 23-year period. As a matter of fact, he hit a home run his very last time at bat on September 28, 1960, in a game at Fenway Park against the Baltimore Orioles. Williams hit home run number 521st, his last time at bat. What a wonderful way to end his great career. He was inducted to the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1966. August 31st, the last day of the month, the great Olympic track star Edwin Moses was born in 1955. I saw him in person at the 1976 Montreal Olympics, the day he won the 400-meter hurdles. And then, of course, the U.S. boycotted Moscow in 1980. He probably would have gone there because 8 years after Montreal, he still made the U.S. Olympic team in 1984 for the Los Angeles Games. And I watched it on TV. He he again won the 400-meter hurdles. And then, 4 years after that, well into his 30s, he competed at the Seoul Olympics in 1988, and he took the bronze medal this time. But that's quite amazing. He's the only 400-meter hurdler to ever win 3 medals in the Olympic Games, 2 gold and a bronze. And he was born August 31st, 1955. But sadly, on the last day of August in 1997, the wonderful lady from Great Britain, who was so popular around the world, Princess Diana, was killed in a car accident in Paris, France. On that day, she was often called the People's Princess. She was only 36 years old. And something else I find interesting to me, my favorite movie of all time was the wonderful movie called Chariots of Fire, which was about the 2 Olympic runners from Great Britain at the Paris Games in 1924. The movie came out in 1981 with actors playing the parts, but the man who was the executive producer of that movie, an Englishman named Dodi Fayed, when Princess Diana broke up with her husband Charles, she met him, and he's the man that she liked very much, and he was the man who also died in the car accident with Princess Diana, the man who had been the executive producer of my favorite movie of all time. I was very sad to hear the death of both Princess Diana and Dodi Fayed, August 31st, 1997. Those are the events I have memorized for the month of August to share with all of you today. This is Phil Easter, the Amazing Memory Man. We'll see you next time. Another story on another subject. Thank you and good night.